Uh,
Okay, here we are.
Hey guys,
Were you saying something, Raj?
no, no.
Were you saying something, Raj?
Can you hear me?
No, no. Let's continue.
Yes, yes, we can hear you, Shah.
Okay.
All right. So we will start by looking at the pull requests. Let me open them quickly. Share my screen. All right. So this PR allows us to mark items as purchased. One thing I made sure to take note of while testing this was whether it retains the checked state if I refresh the page, and it does. So good job on that, Shah and Shagun. And let me see. So the PR was not ready for review when I had tested it. And Laura has left a couple of comments, and I haven't read this earlier, so let's read it out. While the box is checked, to the bottom of this. Laura, can you explain the third point you have made here?
Sorry, just 1 second. I just received a call. 1 second.
Okay, no worries. Sorry about
In
that.
the meantime, we can go through the other PR.
Yes, I'll just mute my phone. Okay, so we will read this point out clearly. And before merging the both of the PRs, we have something else to discuss as well. We'll do that. Okay, let's look at this pull request now. This is by Tuba and Laura. And I tested this out as well. Now it feels incomplete, but again, the acceptance criteria are fulfilled. There was some discussion related to what we discovered last week about the list page. When there's, so I'll just show you what that is to add context. So right now I'm in a list. Okay, right now I'm here. So let's state that as well. I'm already into a list, and if I press this button, this home button, it doesn't let me go back, but you'll see there's a brief glitch kind of that sends me back to the home. And if I just go to this page, you see it, there's a brief while that it takes to redirect me to the list page. So there's a discussion opened by Laura regarding this, and I read this, and I think I have an answer to this. Maybe it's not as minor of an issue as you're thinking, Laura. I mean, hiding one of the options is an easy fix, but if someone opens this link while there's a list added, then that wouldn't be an easy fix. So now let's discuss the solution that I propose. I think it would be a good idea if we can configure the home page to be like, to be, you can say, a loading page until we figure out whether or not a list has been added to the local storage. And based on that, we can either stay here or take it to the list page. That makes the user interface less confusing because of that sudden redirect. So that's one thing we can do. And this other thing, list page when no token is set, I think it has already been answered over here. So you can, yes, so you can just hide the list link until a list is created so that that error does not happen. Now let me show what I meant. If I delete this. Yes, so I'm at the home page right now. If I go to the list page, your list is empty. Click the add item to start your list. So right now I haven't clicked new list. If I go to list and if I click on add item and type something, then it says an error encountered. Now from a user perspective, this is a very, like this task makes sense, right? Your list is empty, click this button to add an item. But right now it does not work. However, if I do this, if I create a new list like this, and then I get to this page and I try to add an item, then it works successfully because I created a list. So the solution to that as well would be, first of all, add the same redirect mechanism as we are doing for the home page, so that in case someone goes to this list, this link without having a list in their local storage, they will be redirected to the home page, or sorry, and to hide this option when there is no local storage token set. Does that make sense to you? Laura might be on a call. Tuba, did you understand what I just said?
Yeah, that's actually the solution that I suggested. And I mean, there are other ways to deal with it, but within the confines of like the way that the app works, I think that's probably the best idea.
Yeah, I agree with you. And I don't know. I was also thinking maybe, let me get rid of this. Maybe if we, this enter existing token thing, maybe we let this link be here, but I don't know. I mean, that would go against the way the issue is planned, but I was wondering if this can be a reusable component. We can show that here as well and hide this if there is no list currently created. Right now it sounds misleading. Your list is empty, whereas there is no list right now. So yeah, that's probably something we can consider doing. But either way, the pull request is good. So we will go ahead and merge it. And there are some changes made by Laura afterwards. Let's quickly have a look at them. Okay, that's punctuation. Ooh, nice catch, Laura. That actually makes it better because that does not cause an error when data is null. Okay, Laura, would you like to explain the third point that you made here?
Right, so what I was saying is that there's an edge case where someone clicks an item and it turns out that they misclicked. They didn't actually want to mark that item as purchased. The way that it works right now, there's no way for them to undo that.
Oh, is it?
Once they click the checkbox, it's disabled. There's no way to uncheck it.
Okay, let me make sure I experienced that the same, because I think I was able to. Oh yeah, you're right. We don't have the ability to uncheck it. Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
But as I was saying, it's kind of outside the scope because it has a whole lot of other implications, because of eventually you'll be calculating when the next purchase should happen based on when you check the boxes. So if you have an undo, then you have to also undo that calculation.
Yeah, you're right.
So it becomes extremely complicated. So what I was suggesting is what at least we should probably do is have some kind of a message. If someone tries to uncheck the box, at least give them some sort of like a message that tells them why they can't do that.
I see.
At the very least, like ideally they should be able to undo it, but that involves a more complicated solution. So I think at least it would be good if you could like tell them, you know, if they're clicking on it and nothing's happening, then that can be really confusing for a user.
Yeah. I
If,
see.
what I think for covering this up is like allowing the user to check or uncheck and storing that particular thing in Firebase. And whenever user, closes his application, then we perform the calculation. So,
Yeah,
with
this is
this
sort of,
particular,
sorry, this is sort of one of the things that I mentioned. It gives sort of like a grace period where it's not actually committed until after a certain period of time.
Yeah, you're right, Laura. Actually, the solution that Raj said requires us to track if the application is open or not, whereas the
yes,
solution that Laura suggested does not. And I think the
You know,
implementation is Shah?
the way the code is working right now, it doesn't care about the check status. The check status works only on the client side because the code is just tracking the date last purchase. If it's more than 24 hours, it will show as unchecked. If it's less than 24 hours, it will show as checked. Once the user clicks on check. So after I went through Laura's suggestions, they were all really good. I was thinking maybe if there's a way we could implement a set timeout so that when a user first clicks on the check, there's a set timeout function that runs for maybe 30 seconds. And when the 30 seconds complete, only then it runs the set check state change. But I haven't implemented that. It's something that only came to my mind before this meeting started.
Well, what I think is maybe along with, so this is what I propose. You are storing whether or not a list item has been checked, right? Along with that, you can also store when exactly the item was checked. So the exact timestamp. What happens now is when the user tries to uncheck the item, you can, see if it's like 30 seconds difference. And if it is, then you let them uncheck. If not, you don't let them uncheck. Maybe that's something we can do.
Maybe, but I'd have to try it before I say anything because it's not within the scope. So maybe
Cannot
I
this
can,
ticket at least, yeah.
yeah, I can have it in the discussions and come back to it later.
Sure, yeah. Both PRs are already approved, so the only thing we're going to do now is merge them. Actually, let's do
Yeah,
that.
and coming back to Laura also mentioned about striking it out, and that also came to my mind. But yeah, that relates to CSS, and always with every issues I have some opinions about the CSS, but no one else is willing to chip in because
Yeah.
we would need the approval of the entire team to learn where we are heading in terms of design, which we haven't, we have no clue right now. So I say let it be, and again come back to it later once we are with the CSS part.
Personally, I would say for really small things like this, it might be good just to add the CSS as you're going. Like it's not an overall design issue. It's a very small localized issue. And if you don't do it at the time that you're making the PR, it's the kind of thing that you can easily forget to add later.
Yeah, so I can add the CSS, right now. And what we can do is, because I have no idea how we are going to demonstrate that the item is checked. Some designs were using strikeouts, some designs were using icons, some designs were even, showing eggs. Eggs were broken, it meant the items were checked. And if eggs were whole, it meant the items were unchecked. So that's why I didn't make any changes related to CSS. If everyone agrees, I can update the CSS. It will take just a second.
You mean for striking?
Yeah, if the state is if the checked is true, the item will be striked, and if it's false, it will be unstriked, normal text.
Okay. Yeah, if you want, you can do it. I still think that this PR is sufficient enough to be merged. What I think you can do is maybe you can create a new PR for that once this one is merged. It doesn't have to be connected to any issue, but you can mention it there if that's okay.
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
Also, like
Okay.
I think all of the improvement that we are discussing about, we can write it down in a doc, and
We
once
should.
this session ends, we can present it to the TCL team to to incorporate those changes for the next batch.
Definitely. Yeah, that sounds like a good idea.
Yeah.
Is
Yeah.
there a
Apart
place
from
on
that,
GitHub where we can keep all these things? Like
Yeah,
we
yeah,
have
yeah.
I
We can use
discussions.
discussions. We can use that's what
uh,
Laura used for these really nice threads. So maybe you can create one here.
yeah, then I can.
Also,
Okay.
like
Yeah, go ahead, Raj.
like we were talking about timestamps and all that. So timestamp worked a little bit differently. So we have to, be compliant with Firebase. So the project that we have posted, block that, it has that particular feature of timestamp implemented in library slash firebase.ts or .ts file. And you have to restore to this particular commit to get those things because I'm building the project from scratch just to make it compliable with the virtual hosting. It will work on localhost. Just test it out and look at the timestamp function if you want.
Yes. So if you want to, as Raj said, if you want to implement the status storage into Firebase, the checked or unchecked, then you can look at that, and that might help you with the timestamp thing. Well, we really went through the entire PRs. Do we actually let's go ahead and do the demos. We we still haven't done the demos. Would you like to go first, Laura and Tuba?
Sure. I'm presenting the code, but I need you to enable the screen sharing.
There you go.
Okay, so this is the code here. What we had to do was really quite simple. All we did here is we checked to see if the data, that's the list items, if it's undefined or it has no length. If that's the case, then the list is empty and we show this welcome message. And then what we did is we just put everything else, like the pre-existing code, we put it into the other side of the conditional, which means if there are list items, all that code will show up instead. And that's really it.
Okay. I noticed that you used a very interesting feature of React in here. The empty tag on line 24. Can you tell us more about it?
Yes, this is a React fragment. Basically, in React, you're not allowed to have multiple HTML elements at the top level. So when you do, the traditional solution, I believe, was people would just wrap them in div tags. But what React Fragment does is it allows you to wrap it without actually adding extra elements to the page.
Yes, good explanation, Laura. Well done. You completely, most people use this, but they are not even able to name it. But you completely described it. So yes, Laura is right. This is a React fragment, and it's used to wrap sequences of elements where we can't do otherwise. Do you know of any other way to do this, Laura, without using React fragments? let's say I wanted to render it just like this, but I didn't want to use React fragments. What would I do in that case?
Well, as I said, you could wrap it into div, but if you're talking about not wrapping it at all, I suppose you could extract it to a component. Other than that, I'm not sure.
Well, there is another way to do that, Laura. And we used to do that when we did not have React fragments. So I'll try to explain it very quickly. Or maybe, can you give me control?
There you go.
So let's say I do, let's say I do this, and this is one div, and I put a comma here, and a comma here.
Oh, you're using the React children.
Yep.
Yeah.
And don't forget to add the key attribute to all the div,
Right.
UL and div. Yeah.
Right.
So I hope that's something interesting you learned. Don't commit
Yes.
this. This is just okay. Well, that was interesting. Yeah, thank you, Laura. We can go ahead with the demo. I think Tuba was going to do that today. Yeah, we should all clap for Laura, except, no, this is not, this is a clap, yeah. Yes, Tuba?
Is my screen visible?
Yes, it is.
Okay, so since you can see here that I have no list in my local storage, so the list page is showing the prompt, your list is empty. Click the add item button to start your list and this add item button. And when I click on this button, I am redirected to the add item page. And that's it.
Okay. Well, I don't think this will work though. Can you try entering an item just now?
Yeah, it will throw an error.
Yes. And why? Can you explain that?
Because it's just to add an item to a list, not to create a new list from scratch like we do in homepage. Yeah.
Exactly. Yes. Thank you, Tuba. So that was the case that we just talked about.
Yeah.
And that's something we plan on fixing eventually. Maybe that's not part of any existing issue, but we'll still deal with it. Okay, thank you. Thank you, Tuba. We can go ahead to Shah and Shagun.
I can do the code and Shagun can demonstrate.
Is that okay, Shagun?
Sure. Yeah,
All
yeah.
right.
Okay, 1 second. Can you guys see my screen? Is my screen visible?
Yes, it is.
Yeah, okay, so I'll go through the sequence of actions and the corresponding changes in the code. So before we had a list with list items, the list items only had a name component and a key. So this time we also included item ID as prop and date last purchase as prop for each list item component. So whenever a list is rendered, these get passed on. And inside the list item component, so the list item component, it's using the use state and use effect hooks to update the state of the items checkbox. And this is the input we created. And as you can see, it's of type checkbox, and it's every time the user clicks on it, it changes. So it runs the handle check function, and the handle check function updates the state of checkbox. So it passes, first it checks if our token list, and then it runs the set check function to update the state, and it passes the state of if is checked is true. We don't use the disabled case right now. So whenever is checked is true, it will be going to update the item in the Firebase function, in the Firebase, using the list ID and item ID. So I'll go to the Firebase right now. Here's the update item function in the Firebase. So what Firebase does, it creates a reference to the specific item in the database. We pass the database list ID and item ID. And after creating the reference, it then retrieves the data using the get dot. And then once we have the data, we can use it as we like. Here we are storing the total purchases in a variable called total purchases, and then updating it using the update doc function. It's native to Firebase again, Firestore. And here, whenever we are updating an item, we increase the total by 1, and then save the date last purchase of the time when the update function is running. So whenever the user is clicking the check item, it saves the date last purchase of that moment. And again, after the item is updated, it means that the date last purchase has changed. And this affects the use effect we're using. The date last purchase is a dependency of the use effect. So either that, or if a list is empty and we add an item, that also creates a date last purchase, which also runs the use effect. And it checks basically that if date last purchase is null or has a value. If it has a value, then it calculates the difference and sets the check state to false if the difference is more than 24 hours. If the difference is less than 24 hours, it keeps it at true. And yeah, that's it.
Okay. So the first use effect, the one that's marked with date last purchased, does that run even when the application starts, or does it only run when it changes?
It will run one time when the application starts.
Will it? Are you sure? I mean, have you tested that out?
I did not test that out. I don't think so. I think I only check for the existing list items.
Yeah.
Let me see one second.
Because I believe if you want it to run when the application starts, when the component renders, then you also need to put the same function with an empty dependency array in use effect. So you need to like recall that function even when the dependency is array is empty. So like you need to duplicate it.
Yeah. Correct.
The way I was told when I was learning it is that if you put something in a dependency array, it runs once in the beginning and also based on all the dependencies.
Okay. If that's the case, then I will need to check whether I know the correct thing or not. So that's something that we'll check. For now, we'll merge the PR because the understanding is that it runs in the beginning as well. But I'll make sure I'm telling you the correct thing. So I'll check that out. Yeah, one more thing before we move on to the demo is, can you scroll down a little, Shah? So on line 38, you have the name outside the label in 37. Can you tell me what happened if you kept it inside the label tag?
Inside the label tag.
Yeah, if you switch 37 and 38, can you tell me what will happen?
It will. And so there are two ways to do this, if I remember correctly. We can keep the name inside the label and keep it outside the label. But I have been always keeping it outside the label, so I'm not sure what happens when you do it inside the label.
Okay, I'll explain what happens. So the label tag essentially means some textual label or some picture or some other textual content corresponds to a certain kind of input. And how we usually indicate that is using the for attribute in the label tag, which corresponds to the ID of that input tag. Okay, that's one way to do it. If you want to avoid the for attribute, you can simply keep both the input and the other label text within the label tag. And what that does is it designates the text or content as the label of the only content tag inside that label tag. Which, I mean, that whole technical thing means if the name tag is inside the label tag, then clicking the name tag will also clicking the text will also trigger the input. So it will check the item even when I click the text. Can you try that, Shah? If you're running a developer instance, if not, that's fine.
Yeah, let me see.
Yeah.
For the first one, you want me to try putting this inside the label?
Yes. Just switch 37 and 38. Yeah. And can you share your entire screen? Because I think right now you're only sharing Visual Studio Code.
Yeah, 1 second.
Meanwhile, I can quickly Google that dependency thing.
Mm-hmm.
Just give me a moment.
If for some reason my terminal is not working right now.
Okay, no worries. Anyway, you can test that out later. Now,
Yeah.
that's the whole utility of the label tag. Now, right now, you're not utilizing the label for that purpose. So I don't think you need the label tag at all. You can just get rid of it and it will still work as expected.
I'm pretty sure for accessibility, you should always keep the label though.
Well, Laura, that would also mean that you should keep the name inside the label.
No,
If
I
you're talking
agree. The name should definitely be inside the label, but I'm saying that removing the label rather than moving the name inside is a worse option.
Okay.
At least from
Okay.
an accessibility perspective.
Okay,
Inputs should
I
always
can-
have labels.
Okay, I can understand. I think you're right on this. So, yeah, we will have the PR as is, but keep this in mind. That's just something that you can keep in mind. Okay, we can move ahead to the demo. Shagun.
Yeah, sure. One second. Screen visible? Hello?
Yes,
Yes, it
yes,
is.
it is.
Okay, so these are the check boxes. Whenever I click on any item, it will retain for 24 hours. And if I try to change the date here, for more than 24 hours, for example, like for 2-3 days, then you can see the items get unchecked.
Okay,
That's it.
nice. So we actually have that tested, Shah, don't we?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, then.
Can you hear me?
Yes, yes, I can hear you. All right, good work, everyone. And let's, okay, we have to proceed to the retro. But what I want us to finish doing before the retro is to merge the PRs, first of all, and to assign the new issues so that we can spend the rest of the time for the retro. We already covered quite some time. So let me merge both the PRs. I did approve this. Just like the last time, we have a conflict this time as well. So I guess I'll resolve it and then merge it. Or if any of you can do it, Laura or Tuba, feel free to. Besides that, Kriti is not here right now. Raj, would you like to assign the issues?
Sure, sure. Just give me a minute. So for week 5, we are having Shagun, Laura, and Shah and Tuba pair. And so we have issue numbers. Okay, 9 and 10. Issue
Raj,
7
would you like
has
to
been.
share
Yeah,
your
sure,
screen?
sure. Sure, sure. Just give me. Can you see my screen?
Mhm.
Okay. So for week 5, we have 2 issues, issues number 9 and 10. So for 9, the issue is, as a user, I want to be alerted when I'm turning an empty item or an empty dash item. So the for issue 9, we want to add a functionality or maybe just a type check or validation while submitting item to the list. So the expected criteria is to notify the user whenever he's trying to insert an empty item or a duplicate item that's already been present. And issue number 10, we have the time my purchase recorded in the database so that app can learn how. And for issue number 10, we want to estimate the next purchase for our items from the list based on the purchase list for the rest of the items. So one is like little bit computational issue where we have to perform some kind of computational. Definitely, we are not talking about some vague statement. We have proper defined criteria for that as well. And then we have a validation kind of issue. So any preference, Shah, Laura, Shagun, Tuba? Can you
I'm
hear
okay
me?
with both.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just saying that I'm okay with any of them.
I kind of like
Classical
number,
dilemma.
I like number 9 if no one else has a preference.
Okay, sure. Sure, sure, sure. Yeah. Done with those. Yeah. Oh,
Okay. So meanwhile, let's start the retro. I'll share the link to the retro. And
Haro,
yes.
could you quickly go over how to resolve conflicts from GitHub? Because I know how to do it locally, but I don't know how to do it on the website.
Okay, I'll show you the screen and we might as well finish it up. So the one bad thing about the GitHub UI for conflict resolution is the fact that it does not show us the it doesn't show the syntax. It doesn't do the syntax highlighting very well, which is why it's hard to understand. So let me just explain how Git does it and how we used to have it before, like way before we had these graphical editors. So there are three symbols: these left arrow signs, these equal signs, and these greater than signs that are used to represent two different parts of the code. One that's coming from the branch that we're trying to merge, and the other one that's within the branch where we are performing the merge. So what graphical editors do now, Laura, is simply help visualize this better. And I assume you're using the three-way editor in Visual Studio Code, Laura, or are you using the older one?
I was on a Mac and I was using a tool called diff merge, I believe.
Mhm. Okay, I see. So you're using a third-party tool. Let me check what kind of um, editor it uses. Does it use? Okay, it does use a three-way merge, I think. Yeah. So the thing with three-way merges is it shows you the incoming change, it shows you the current branch changes, and it also shows you the ultimate change that's going to be made, including any additional changes you make to the merge commit. Is that how this tool works, Laura?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. So that is something that did not exist in Visual Studio Code until very recently. So essentially what happens is these three options. If I click this, it will keep everything from the less arrow sign to the equal sign and remove everything after till here. If I click the second option, or maybe I said the opposite, yeah. If I click the second option, then it will keep everything from the less arrow sign to the equal sign. If I click the first option, it will keep everything from the equal sign to the greater than sign. If I click this, then it will keep all of this. Now, after clicking one of these three, I will have to make some changes myself. In most cases, we have to, because just accepting both changes wouldn't be enough. So we'll have to make some changes to make sure everything fits in. And then we can go ahead and add this file to the staging area and then make the commit. And adding to the staging area is usually what this option means, mark as resolved. And then we'll have the option to merge, which will make the final merge commit. Does that make sense, Laura?
Yes, thank you.
No worries. And now that I'm looking at it, I'm wondering if we can. All right. So I think the incoming change is what is essentially what we want. And this one is click the add item button to.
I think it's the date last purchased on the list item.
Oh, is it? Oh, yes. This is not there in the list item. Yeah. And the item ID is not there either. All right. And also, this code is formatted a little differently, and this code is formatted a little differently as well. So, this one is breaking the line here, and this one is breaking here. So in this case, I wouldn't take the risk to do the conflict resolution in this web user interface. I'll probably clone it locally and then do it. Or if you would like to do it, Laura or Tuba, then that would be great too. Oh, it's okay.
Sure.
Mhm.
Okay. I can just do it really quickly.
That's okay. You don't have to do it right now. You can do it after
All
the
right.
weekly sync.
Okay.
Okay.
Also,
And
there is a visualization tool that I mentioned earlier. It's called Git Graph. It's an extension for VS Code. Install on VS Code, and it has like pretty good timeline kind of view where you can go through all of the conflict or whatever, and then choose whatever you want to merge.
Thank you, Raj. Can you name the tool again? Git Graph, was it?
Sure. I can write it down on chat.
Okay. Thank you, Raj. All right. So keep in mind that so Laura, since you mentioned that you will resolve the conflicts, once you have resolved the conflicts and merged that, the PR will be again open for merging. Please mention that in the chat in Slack so that I can merge the PR, because until I do that, none of you should create the draft PR that you're supposed to do tomorrow, because then it would branch out of the current main, which is what we don't want. Did you understand what I'm trying to say?
Yeah, that's fine. I'll do it right after the meeting.
Okay, yeah, thank you. And please mention that in Slack so that I can merge the PR once that's done.
Yeah, I will.
Okay, thank you very much, Laura. I'll open the retro board, and I'll also share a link in the chat so that we can have the retro now. Okay, I just dropped the link in the chat, and what we need to do is get to week 4. I'll share my screen just to give you a glimpse of what it looks like. So inside week 4, we have to again do the 4 boxes. Continue what helped us move forward, stop what held us back, oops, what we can do differently, and what we can act on. Now you'll see that one card is already placed there. I suppose that's Kriti's card because she mentioned she would not be able to come. So she probably did it prior to joining, which is really nice of her. And before we start doing the cards, let's have a quick look at what we had last week. So in the continue box, we had good communication, I think, positive attitude, constant coordination, supportive nature. In this, the delay was something that everyone pointed out, and a little challenge with React. We have invent, where we talked about the non-mandatory sync. So we decided to use the office hours for that. Although I realize that most of the time we are talking about non-technical topics. We can, if you want to, talk about technical topics as well. And what we should do here is, so this big card over here, dedicated to UI UX, we already have that thread. I'm not sure if we had too much discussion there. But moving forward, if we want, we can do that. And yeah, that's pretty much the summary. And now we can start on doing the cards for week 4. So I'll stop sharing my screen. I suppose all of you have the links opened on your end. If so, can you mention that in the chat that you have the board open? Zara has it. Shah has it. Chagan has it. What about you, Tuba? Tuba, are you there? Yeah, okay. She has it as well. All right. If anyone feels like they are running out of cards, they can try copy pasting. That's what I had to do a couple of times. All right. Looks like we are done with the retro. So let's try something. I'll give a chance to everyone one by one, and we'll all take 1 minute to talk about the 4 cards that we have created. Shah, it's your turn. And you can share your screen while doing that.
Can you hear me?
Yes. Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, can you see the screen?
Yes.
Okay, so I'm supposed to talk about my card, right? I
Yes.
missed the previous retro.
Yeah, no problem. We didn't do this last time anyway.
So yeah, what helped us move forward was patience, empathy to work with each other's schedules and understand that other people also are busy. And the midweek office hours was a good addition. So next, what held us back? Computer problems caused a delay for me. My computer crashed and I had to reset my Windows. I wasted 1 day figuring that out. Now, how could we do things differently? So I noticed that the Slack was more inactive than usual recently. So maybe we can get more active on Slack. Probably this week was really busy for everyone, especially because of holidays. So I know Param had some work to do. So yeah. And what should we do next? So yeah, like we discussed in the previous retro, we need to get down and have a discussion on the at least the high level design and the user interface of the app. So yeah.
Thank you, Shah. And I really hope your computer is working fine now.
Yeah. Thanks.
I assume if you have figured out why that error happened, if that was a storage issue, make sure you get the correct hardware or make sure you do whatever it takes to let that not happen again, because data loss is a very big pain.
It will
Yeah.
happen again, because it's happening because my GPU is malfunctioning and it's causing my RAM to die.
Oh no.
I bought 2 RAMs this week and both of them already died. So I need to
you should buy a new
get a
GPU in
replacement.
that case. Mhm.
Yeah.
Mhm. I mean, if you're paying for an upgrade for the GPU, might as well get a better GPU, right? So plan on that.
Yeah, let's see.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you, Shah. Laura, your turn.
All right, second. This is the one. Right, okay. For the first one, which is what helped us move forward. So for me personally, I found the issues quite easy this time, which I really liked because I have a hard time sticking to just the requirements of the PRs without considering, you know, like the other issues that might be arising. So what was nice about it is it did give me some time to like sort of explore and think about some of the other things that are going on with the app and to have some conversations about that. So that was really useful for me. Second, what held us back? Nothing this week. As I said, the issues were easy, and with both my pairing partners, we were able to pair and get finished with the issue on the very first day of the week. So, you know, that went really well. Then down here, how can we do things differently? This is similar to what Shah was saying, is just more communication, more feedback from fellow collabs. I know, again, for everyone, this week was really busy, but I would really like to hear what other people think about some of the issues that are being raised. You know, Shah tried to have a discussion about the design, and then I also tried to add something to it. And I feel like it would be nice, I'm not blaming anyone at all, but it would be nice if we could have a more lively discussion. And then again, as I mentioned last week, I think it would be a really good idea to have a talk about the UI. And that's it.
Thank you, Laura. Once I finish this, we'll go through all of them once more and we'll have a summary of what we're supposed to do. Okay, moving ahead, it's Tuba's turn. Tuba.
Is my screen visible?
Yes, it is.
Okay, so what helped us move forward is understanding each other's availability and, you know, like the issues they are having is, I mean, I like the understanding behavior from everyone. And yeah, I was not able to join the office hours this week because of some issues. I had a few things that day, and because of that, I was feeling a bit disappointed for myself and felt like I missed something. And as Laura said that like if everyone shared what they think about the issues and how we can approach them in a better way, might be a bit more helpful. And like everyone said that getting started with the UI and implementing the edge cases right now will help us to avoid overloading ourselves in the end, because if we keep on delaying these things, I think in the last 2 or 3 weeks we will be having a lot of issues.
Yeah, thank you, Tuba. We can move on to Shagun.
This week, I guess there was a lot of timing issue problem from my side. Like I was unable to join the meet with Shah on Monday, but somehow we were able to coordinate and we completed the task in 2 days, Tuesday and Wednesday. This thing only held me back. There was a timing issue from my side, and somehow Shah's computer crashed and some technical issues from his side. To make things better, I guess we can have more discussions in the office hours, more oriented towards technical things. And the experiences that you shared in these week office hours were really helpful for me. I guess that was really great thing that we did in the office hours this week. And to move forward, like for today, we um, we have gone over all the reviews on the PRs and we came up with different options and better solutions. We can continue with this thing for more issues each week.
Okay, thank you, Shagun. Raj, you can go next.
Sure. So what we are supposed to continue doing forward is keep backing each other, uh, and yeah, uh, doing whatever is required. Um, and what we could do differently is try to involve Andrew in some of the discussion or suggestion that we are having here and there, and try to have his feedback, how he or the whole Collab Lab wants to integrate those things. Then so regarding what held us back, I suggest having pre-recorded modules for learning modules or for other things, and then we can have Q&A or hands-on session or just a general interaction, or as our office hour for the last week went, like that, gets converted into casual conversation. We could also have them as official ones if everybody agrees. And then what we can do next is to squeeze the development cycle of the application and use rest of the time for interaction. Interaction could be one-on-one or group call or having call with other TCLs, mentee or mentors. That's what I think. So from our team, who are like pretty great at pushing PRs.
Param, I cannot hear you.
Oh, I'm so sorry. That's where I should have started. Okay, I'll go again. I'll go from scratch again. Okay. So I think what kept us going. Okay, I'll quickly go through mine, and I'll after I'm done with mine, I'll go through Kriti's. All right. So I think what kept us going was sharing responsibilities, giving good feedback. We had really good feedback from the collabis this time, and having discussions. I think, as Raj also mentioned, we should have continuous discussions, formal and informal, to help develop a better understanding with each other. What held us back, I believe, okay, so this is something I've gathered from the feedback. The modules weren't as interactive or fulfilling as they should have been. So that's one thing that we need to work on. And Raj gave us a suggestion here, which we talked about previously, to have the modules pre-recorded and then have interactive Q&As after that, after those. And again, the lack of clarity on what to do with the lack of token when there's no token in the front end. That's one edge case that we have been talking about for the second week this time. And we should definitely consider having a discussion on that. Yes. What we need to do differently is to have better technical interaction. This week, we tried to have more interaction in the form of uh, office hours in multiple slots, but maybe we can also try having more technical discussions related to the project. Sorry, related to the project, which requires less time commitment. So maybe like 15 minutes, 30 minutes at some random times in the week. And we need a better timing plan as well to avoid rescheduling on the last day. Like I think last week we rescheduled, and this week also we rescheduled. So maybe we can plan that better. Maybe we can track if we have Eid on Saturday, or if we have any other festival on Saturday, or if someone is busy on Saturday. In that case, we can reschedule the weekly sync prior, so that it's easier for everyone else to free that time slot for themselves. And finally, I believe, oh wait, yeah. And also, I think we should also spend more time peer reviewing, because as important as it is to get feedback from us, it is also important to have feedback from our peers. Um, so similar to how Laura has been doing, which I really appreciate, writing comments on each other's pull requests is a really good way to give peer review feedback. And finally, what we should act on is, we should encourage having pull requests that don't have designated issues in order to resolve the bugs and to personalize the project according to TCL-60, because you're not supposed to finish generic tasks that everyone else is doing. You can do things on your own, and you should be able to do some personalization. And that's something we'll have to discuss along with the long awaited UI discussion that Shah wants to have. So that's something we should have. I'll quickly go through Krati's uh, cards as well. Did anyone say something? Is there something I missed? I think we are running ahead of time. We are running ahead of time, so I'll try to finish up quickly. Krati mentioned everyone displayed dedication towards their tasks and goals, and some issues in finding a common time slot for everyone. We should try to use different collaborative tools and use them and explore them all. I think we'll need some more elaboration on this by Kriti. And finally, to keep working with the same motivation and completing the issues on time. I think we were really fast on that this week. Okay, so let's build a summary. I think we have a good coordination. I think we have good communication. What I do think is we need to give each other more time, so that will make it better. What we already have going very well is we understand each other's positions, and we are able to convey ourselves properly when the time requires us to. Yeah, so we have 2 cards on the modules, so we should definitely find a way to improve the modules, the learning modules, because we all realize that they are not in their best condition right now. So we'll try to make them more enjoyable and more learning for all of us. And about the office hours, we'll try to create more slots so that everyone gets a chance to be available there. And we'll try to increase the interactivity within the team to enhance the mutual understanding. Yeah, I really resonate with this card that Shah made. Slack has been inactive recently, and I think I feel guilty about that as well, because I had a lot going on in my life for the past 2 weeks, which is why I have also been less available. But to resolve that, we should be more active on Slack, and we should also be more active on GitHub discussions, which looks like a good platform to interact on specific topics in the form of threads. What we currently don't have, I believe, is an integration with Slack for the GitHub discussions, which is why we don't get notified on Slack when there's a new thread created or a new message posted in the discussions. So we will need to be more active on GitHub itself in order to look at the discussions. So that's it. And finally, we need to have that long awaited discussion on the user interface. So what I believe we can do about that is we can hold a separate meeting just for the UI discussion. And for this once, maybe I, Raj, and Kriti can step out of it and just let the 4 of you have that discussion, so that you can come up with something that you want to do with the application. And eventually, later on, you can present to us what you have decided, or not. That's totally up to you. So I would encourage Shah, since you're the one leading this, I would encourage you to discuss it with the other three and schedule a meeting where you can, where the four of you can have a discussion on the user interface and personalization.
Sure, sounds good.
And Tuba mentioned that if we don't work on the edge cases immediately, it can create extra load in the last 2 or 3 weeks. I also think it can also create load in the coming issues, because then you will be working on a new issue as well as working on resolving a bug. So that's something you would want to avoid. And it's better if we all keep track of whatever bugs we are facing. So, Shah, Laura, Tuba, and Shagun, we had a lot of discussion on the issues today, and we talked about a couple of bugs or potential bugs. What I would encourage you to do now is to create issues within the repository for them, and we can, that's a good way to keep track, and then maybe we can pick them up and work on them in the future. Okay, and if they're irrelevant, we'll just close those issues. That's not an issue. That's not an issue. Yeah. That's it for this weekly sync. If anyone, does anyone have anything else to add?
I just have a question.
Yes,
Oh.
go ahead, Laura, and Shah can continue after that.
Sorry, yeah, I was just asking, how exactly will we manage any extra PRs that we have to add? Because aren't they going to conflict with the weekly ones?
They definitely are. You're right. In that kind of situation, sometimes what, okay, well, I mean, I was under the assumption that the weekly issues that we assign to the two pairs would not conflict with each other, but you can see, Laura, that's already happening. So we already have conflicts to care about. And maybe what we can do is we can make pull requests from a level 2 branch to one of the branches where the teams are working. And in that case, we can minimize the conflicts instead of avoiding conflicts, because we can't avoid them. And finally, if there are any issues that persist till the end of all the existing issues, till number 13, we can then start working on them, which would avoid any conflicts with the existing PRs. Yeah, that's kind of my plan. What do you suggest, Laura?
That sounds fine to me, especially working on a branch off of a branch. That sounds like a way that would help a lot.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think that would minimize the conflicts. Yeah. Yeah, Shah, you can go ahead.
I had a similar question.
Go ahead.
Regarding the design issue, I think what we can do for this week is get all of the iteration done pretty quickly, merge it early on, and then work on design without any issue.
Can you say it again, Raj? I think my volume was too
So
low.
can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you. It's just not loud.
Yeah, so what I was suggesting is to get done with the regular issues comparatively fast for this week, and then work on design issue so that we don't have any kind of conflict if you want.
I don't know if I agree with you on that, because I think taking it slow and taking the time to understand each issue and do the individual PRs within the designated time is part of the experience. So I believe that it's better we take the time to do the individual issues, and maybe if you want to do extra PRs on the side or at the end, that's what we can do. Do you agree with me, Raj?
Yeah. I got it. Why you are saying that. because we do
I don't
not.
think that
Yeah.
we ever have to stop working on the PRs. I mean, the Collab Lab may end in 2 months, but we can go on improving the app if we want.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. And you mentioned, Shah, that you had a similar question. Was your question covered by what
Yeah,
Laura
it was
said?
answered. Mhm.
Mhm. Okay. Okay. All right, then. Let's end the meeting here. I'll make sure I create the discussion threads for you in the channel, and we will only so once Laura has done the conflict resolution, and she mentioned it in the chat, I will merge the PR, and only after the pending PR is merged, should you create that branch for this week. Does that make sense to everyone?
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. All right. Perfect. So best of luck for this week. Shagun and Laura, and Shah and Tuba. Week 2 teams repeated. I think, yeah. And yeah, that's it. Let me end the recording.